everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jeanette Mitchell, and I go by J Lover. You know, I have been doing these series of check-ins where I check in with real people and we share real stories and we talk about real topics. And so today would be no different. In Trinidad, we are celebrating Labor Day, and of course, in America, you know, we are celebrating Juneteenth. Of course, both very powerful days. Both are powerful, powerful days. And I would like to get more into having conversations about who we are as a people, whether we are talking about Black people in general or whether we are talking about Caribbean people. So today is all about having the Caribbean speak. You know, last week I was um I was joined by my friend Alvin Bradbury from Columbia University, and we talked a lot about his experience as a Jamaican man living in America. And then I was also joined by my friend Nicholas Thompson, who is in Toronto, Canada, and we were talking about what the Labour Party is doing in Canada, and of course his work as a social activist. Today, I am joined by two gentlemen who I have been seeing a lot in the news, and one of whom I'm bringing on first. I know because he is an artist, and guys, you know. From my work that I've done in entertainment, you know, and of course, you guys know I'm a soca junkie. And one of the biggest songs this year actually was a song called Feel the Love. So you might know the group when I call them. I'm going to call their name Freetown Collective. And their lead singer is Muhammad Muwakil, actually. I probably chopped it up and I've been practicing all day, but we are going to get it right, okay? Because we're not about to mess up his name, all right? So, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Now listen, give me the proper pronunciation.
It's phonetic, so it's Muwakil.
Muwakil. Can I tell you, I have been pronouncing it all day. I sent Ray a voice note with me pronouncing it spot on perfect, and then I come on the show and I chop it up.
I mean, happens to the best of us. Don't worry.
It does, but it definitely is a very strong and powerful name, and you have to take your time with it.
You do have to take your time with it. In more ways than one.
Absolutely. It's what?
In more ways than one.
In more ways than one. Absolutely. You know, listen, I definitely want you to look straight to camera, introduce yourself to the people, and then let's just get right into it.
Greetings, people. My name is Muhammad Muwakil. I am an artist living and working out of Trinidad. I am a little piece of God trying to navigate his way happily through this existence, trapped in a body of flesh. Let's go.
I love it. Let us get into it. Now, the first thing I definitely want to talk about, I want to talk about that super spectacular, amazing song that was released last year that became this huge symbol of Carnival.
Mm.
And it's called Feel the Love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would you like to know about Feel the Love?
Well, you know what? As someone who is into our Caribbean music and of course definitely into the genre of soca, can you talk to me a little bit about how that song even came about?
Okay, so Private Ryan and I went to school together.
Mm-hmm.
And probably about 3 years before that, he had said to me that he was beginning to produce music. So, I told him I'd be interested in working with him if ever he was interested in that. So about 2 years ago, he approached me and sent me this rhythm. And the minute I heard it, it just felt so light and beautiful and inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been wanting to enter. We had actually written a song called Where I Am the year before and
Yes.
put it into the carnival space. But we didn't really obey the timing. I think we put it somewhere like mid-January, just before carnival. Anyway, I wrote Feel the Love probably 2 years ago. And it just took a while regarding production for it to be where we wanted it to be, because we kind of felt just how big it was. We felt that it was a song that deserved its due. And so we took our time and put it out. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So now, this year I was with the band Lost Tribe, as were you. So we had the excitement in Lost Tribe, of course, having you on the road and then having that song performed over and over again. Did anyone ever tell you that that was not a carnival song, or that that wasn't a song that would do well during carnival?
Oh, absolutely. We would, well, we were told that it's not soca.
Mm.
But you know what? When people say that, I feel like I'm in very good company because you know who else was told that what they were doing wasn't what it was supposed to be? Sparrow, Stalin, and they were told that they weren't doing calypso. Rudder was told that what he was doing was not. You know what I mean? Every
Yeah.
time the art form has tried to evolve or go into another direction, you're always told that isn't what it is. And in truth, it isn't. It's something else. It's going somewhere else. It's keeping the rudiments of it, but it's taking it in another direction.
I'm happy that you said that because for some reason all yesterday, well, I know what the reason is. My 85-year-old aunt is, loves Stalin, and we were playing his songs last night while we were doing karaoke. And of course, his song Caribbean Man,
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean Unity, and it definitely talks. There is messages within his music. So even though we vibing
Absolutely.
and we grooving, and so your music also sends a message. Feel the love is all about feeling the love.
Yeah.
um there is a lot happening in the world right now, especially as it relates to Black Lives Matter. And being an American Caribbean woman, I do hear the feedback on both ends. One of the feedback that I have been hearing in Trinidad is that we don't have those type of issues,
Hmm.
right? We don't have Black Lives Matter issues. Is that true?
Of course, it's not true. Um, but what Trinidadians suffer from is comfort or the inability to dream outside of the current situation. So there are things that we've accepted as fact. We live in certain types of areas. We are expected to get certain types of jobs and nothing higher. We are expected to drive certain types of cars. The people who die every year in our murders, 400 of them as of late, every year, they're expected to be from a certain race of people and a certain type, so usually young African male. These are things that as Trinidadians we've accepted as fact. There will be foreign companies coming in here selling things that local people are producing as well, and locals are not going to do as well as foreign products. We've accepted all these things, and we've accepted them as fact, and therefore we don't even see the oppression that's present. We don't see it anymore. We just think that this is the way the world is. And that's because as a people, I think, in general, we've lost the ability to dream outside of our situation. And when you lose the ability to dream, you get caught in a survival loop, and there's nothing taking you out of that loop because a dream is the only thing that can remove you from getting caught in a loop of just thinking in terms of survival. You know what I mean? And that's where we are now. So obviously people would say, no, I'm actually good. There's no problems here. I have a car. I have a house that I live in. But the average Trinidadian is just one calamity away from poverty. If you were to
Mm.
get sick or someone in your family were to get sick, if your car were to crash, if your house were to burn down, the average Trinidadian would be poor after that event. It's very hard for us to get loans from the bank. The average person under the age of 35 cannot afford a home in this country. I would dare say under the age of 45. It's almost impossible to own a house now for our generation. But we've begun to accept that as fact too and work our way around it because as Black people, we ingenious, right? We work our way around everything. Every problem we have, we find a fix it. But sometimes it's not to find a fix it. It's to break down the system as it exists and build a new one.
You know, you mentioned something that I've heard a lot of people say, which is that Trinidadians are comfortable, right? They won't bring the war. One of the things that I noticed a couple weeks ago that there was a solidarity march
Yeah.
in support of the Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you think showed up at that rally?
Between 300 and 400 people.
Yeah. Um, was that rally supposed to be an extension of the Black Lives Matter in that's happening in the US in support? Was it in fact in support of certain things that are happening in the country? And was there supposed to be another rally, a follow-up rally to that one?
So it was to show solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the States,
Mhm.
because the way that we look at it is that it's almost as though it was in the time of apartheid. We look at the system in the States in very much the same way, because Black people in the States, African people in the States, have been fighting for such a long time to simply be recognized as human. Civil rights wasn't 1,000 years ago. It wasn't 100 years ago. Yeah, it was just what, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Um,
the 60s.
and can you imagine that at that time, people weren't looked at as even to be human. You understand? Even being just human. And so we've been fighting for that. So we definitely saw it as a solidarity move, but also that there are issues here, and we wanted to get together to begin to discuss those issues. And a lot of things were discussed on that day. Where we are now is that we have planned a follow-up meeting to discuss what's the next way forward. We don't believe that the way forward here, or at least the first thing that we want to do, is to protest and come out in the streets. That's our last resort. We are hoping that there can be much more done through different back channels and discussions that we've begun to have with certain people who've begun to ally themselves.
Are you having conversations with the political parties that exist right now? For instance, the PNM, the UNC, or even the New Vision, the
No,
New National Vision Party?
no, they don't. Well, the New National Vision is kind of always open to discussing things, right? But as far as the PNM and the UNC go, they've been entrenched in power for so long that they don't listen to certain groups. They just don't. Unless you have some sort of financial backing or you create enough commotion that they get uncomfortable. And even then, they have a tendency to dismiss you because they're so entrenched in power. They don't really have a reason to listen to anyone yet. But as we see around the world, there are many institutions that have felt the same, who today are reeling from that.
Correct.
Yesterday we saw Lloyd's Bank in London giving a statement of being sorry for some of the things that they did during slavery and financing certain things. Yeah. And that's major because now they're given grounds for reparations. So we see in institutions that we thought would never fall in that way, reeling now. So I really hope that the governments of the Caribbean are taking notice. People are waking up in a very serious way.
What would you say? Because I feel like, there is a comfort with us in the Caribbean, right? One of the things that Mr. Bradbury from Columbia University communicated with me last week was that as a Caribbean, because we grew up seeing people who represent us, right? In schools, we see them in academia, we see them in positions of power, right? And for most of the Caribbean islands, they run their own affairs, right? With the exception, of course, of the IMF or other types of involvement. But what are our issues? I mean, I know, the police commissioner talked about crime being one of the major issues in Trinidad, right? But what are our issues?
Saying that crime is a major issue is like someone who is eating oily foods and all of that, and they have acne, and they're saying that the issue is acne. The issue is not acne. The issue is what you're eating. So our issues are systemic, but we look at the end result of our systemic issues, and we say that those are the issues. So someone like Gary Griffith, we are content with having him represent us in ways of he's fixing things. But what he's doing, the story of Hercules when he meets the Hydra and he keeps cutting its head off and the head keeps growing back. That's what it is. If someone is suffering or people are suffering and they are displaying a certain type of behavior because they are suffering, to kill those people isn't going to end their suffering. As a matter of fact, it's only going to make them feel more excluded and make them fight more viciously than ever before. You know what I'm saying? We have an issue here of exclusion, that certain people are not allowed into certain conversations, certain types of information. So the Black community is not really provided with the type of opportunities to create real and lasting wealth, to create real and lasting business opportunities. So in the Black communities, we don't have very many millionaires. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, someone does really well at school, scholastically, or in sports or otherwise. And so we are expected to sustain our hope via these mechanisms. The average, not the average, the exceptional one, the anomaly who makes it out. We are expected to sustain hope through the anomaly. And that's crazy. That's crazy because the average ghetto youth is not going to be able to get a sports scholarship or to excel at school so much to come out of the tar pit. So all of us are living in here and we are boiling in here, and people are not expecting them to react in certain type of ways. It's crazy. And when a youth act out, you gun them down. But you're not asking, when this youth was a baby, up until the point where he picked up a gun, what happened? Because that's society's responsibility as well. What happened? When a youth is born, they go into kindergarten, they go into primary school, secondary school, university. what are you trying to create? You know what I mean? And until we begin to ask ourselves these critical questions, we still keep on doing the same things over and over and over again. Under the UNC government, it was created in a way where only certain contractors now have the ability to even take certain contracts. So road paving of a certain size and certain things, only certain contractors can take them. So the smaller businessman doesn't have those type of opportunities. A small businessman from the Black community goes into the bank to get a loan. He has to jump through all sorts of hoops, right? Someone from another sector of society can take seed money from their parents and start up businesses, which they can afford to fail at and try again and again and again until they get it. So you see where I'm going, right?
Yeah,
It's
I
all these
completely,
different things.
thank you for sharing that, because I definitely understand where you're coming from. A lot of, my friends who knew that you, as well as Fuad was coming on the show, was definitely talking to me a lot about, just some of the classism that exists in Trinidad, as well as the need for equity. What does an equitable Trinidad and Tobago look like to you?
An equitable Trinidad and Tobago begins in the education system. If you only teach people to become workers, then you're not really exposing them to what is possible in life. You have to teach people to be entrepreneurial minded. You have to teach children just how big the world is and that they can literally dream to be whatever they want to be. Because we tell them that, but then we don't actually provide them with the information and the opportunity to become. So you say you can be whatever you want to be. Okay, I want to be an astronaut. Well, that maybe I had a good no. Okay, well maybe be something else. Okay, I want to be a businessman. Well, black people are so good at, okay, well, you study account. No. And the truth is that we cubbyhole people into very, very specific positions. And so in a way it's a lie. In a way it's a very deep lie that we tell. And it's unfortunate.
Is this a lie that's only being told to a certain part of society? Is someone who is from Celots receiving that message in the same way as someone, let's say, from Westmoreland, or somebody from Glencoe, or somebody from Valsayn?
I went to school with people from that walk of life and those places, right? School I went to, St. Mary's College, is supposed to be one of the better schools on the island, and a lot of rich white folks send their children there, right? Some of these men, they played for all of their school life. They never took schoolwork seriously because they knew at the end of the day, whatever they wanted to achieve in life, they had enough money to do it. You know what I mean? I have friends who really didn't do that well at school and they own restaurants, right? They went away, studied to be chefs, and they came back on the island and they own restaurants because they have enough money to have seed money to start a restaurant on a whim.
Right.
You understand? I can't even be, if I have to explain to somebody what the disparity is between somebody who can barely afford to buy, I don't know, their first suit of clothes for their interview for their first job, and somebody whose parents, when they turn a certain age, buys a BMW for them as a starter car. Like, that level of disparity, when you talk about that, when you think about that, you have to understand what is at stake here. You have to understand what's at stake. That's insane. Those two
What
people are
about
not running in the same race.
now? That's an example of an extreme case, right? That's like the 1 to the 10. What about the people who are kind of in the middle? The people who work hard, the people whose parents were sugarcane workers, people who kind of pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and just are everyday people trying to make it, who are kind of caught up in a society where you have the one percenters, right, who control the majority of the wealth, and then you have how many ever thousands of people who live in areas that are usually frowned upon. you know
mm,
what do they have? What does the average person in this, what's their fight in this, because they're kind of caught in two worlds.
I don't think that the average person sees it as a fight. Um, Comfort is what we're striving for, and we are told that comfort is a very specific thing. So if you can find a place to rest your head that you can afford, you know, and if you can get a car, and if you have a job that you're permanent in your job, and you're going to get a salary every month or whatever, then we kind of stop there. Um, you'll probably never take a vacation in your life. You
Right.
probably, your children will grow up and not see that, you know what I mean? And we kind of look at these things and we think, oh well, these aren't necessary things, you know, I'm able to live. But
Yeah.
why is it that we are thinking like that? These are necessary things for the forming of truly great human beings. But is it that we've settled ourselves to not be truly great? Is it that we've just said, okay, our lives are only going to be mediocre or average or less than average? Because does it really have to be that? Is either you're caught in a survival loop or you're caught in a loop of comfort? Like life has to be more than that, because other than that, you remain in what is relative servitude, right? Because you go to school, you come out, you get a job, you work for these people, you get paid from them because they own everything. You take that money, you go back, you give them back the same money that you just got from them in order to pay for your existence. So the money never stays in your hands. You actually never earn anything, really and truly. You know what I mean? From
And it's
go
a cycle.
to the grocery, to the more what all of those different things. You never, you know, and unless you own land or you own your house or those different things, then you're basically powerless within the society. And the powerless don't ever have a say. And
You
that's
know,
why the politicians behave the way they behave.
right. So in in a political year, I mean, you have brought a very valuable points, and a lot of these are very similar to what's happening, in the US, right? The opportunity to be able to get ahead, the opportunity to take advantage, or even in academics. If you live in a certain neighborhood, there are certain opportunities, there are certain types of schools, but if you don't, there's no access, and then you're not able to then graduate into some of the better schools because you weren't able to have that foundation. Then it becomes a systemic disadvantage. So
That's
that's
right.
definitely something that's happening here as well as um, around the world. But there are so many people who say, listen, I am trying to be successful. I can pull myself out of poverty. Why can't they? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this conversation over and over and over again. What is your role in this movement for better, for social equity, for social justice?
I'm an artist. I've been given the gift to bend reality in a way, right? The music that we create or whatever, it suspends time, it suspends reality in a way. While that person is listening, their mind is able to be free and to sort of dream. And I can't underscore to me the importance of dreams, right? People really, we don't behave as though these things are important. But to not dream is to really not be in a way. To not dream is to kind of stay in the muck of things. But also as an artist, I'm able to cross certain borders and be a bridge between certain types of people. So I will perform in the ghetto, but I will also perform, in some other stush party uptown. You know what I
Right.
mean? We're all over and we have different types of conversations with all types of people. I've traveled, I've seen the world in ways that many of my brothers and sisters are not able to. And I would not have been able to afford that other than through music, right? So music has taken me into many different places that I would have never gone. So my role, because I've seen all these things in many ways as a bridge to create conversations and to put people into rooms who may never enter those rooms, because I have the perspective from both sides. But also because I've also been blessed with a great imagination to come
Mm.
up with ideas and novel ways of thinking as to how to get forward. Because many people get stuck, right? They think of all these problems we have and they just go, we need systemic change. But what does that mean? What does that look like?
Right.
It's
Right.
just this big wall in front of you, and then you have to, as an artist or as somebody who has an imagination and vision, you break it down and you start showing people the simple ways in which we can take it forward. So over the last week since we had the protest action, that's all I've been dedicating my time to, mostly just thinking. Well, I mean, for the last 10 years of my life I've been doing that, but over
Right.
the last week really just coming together in my head and just saying, okay, these are the ideas that we want to kind of promulgate and push forward.
You know, um, as as you touched on the music and you talked about, your creative ways in terms of expressing yourself, there
Mm-hmm.
is a huge movement right now that's happening, that's local dancehall, called the Zessa movement. And it is giving opportunity to a lot of people in places that have been neglected, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's giving them a voice. It's giving them the ability, like, Prince Wani is giving him the ability. the ability to travel, to perform, to make money, to bring money back into his community, pathways out of poverty. But people are criticizing that type of music because it sounds very violent, or it talks about, a day in the life that most people are not used to. Where do you think the Zessa movement can go, and how can it be a positive influence?
Whew. Yeah.
Hmm.
It is a touchy topic because in the first instance you can't condemn these youths, right? They didn't create themselves. They didn't create the society that causes a young man who has all that talent, and instead of singing about something soulful and beautiful, he's singing about death, killing his brother, robbing and stealing to survive, right? um, Treating his woman in a certain type of way because that's what he's seen. So we create these cesspools, and we put people to live in there. And when those people make a culture out of that in order to survive, because you have to be proud of where you're from, regardless. So they put
Right.
them there, and those people make a culture out of it. They make a culture because you're forced to live in this way, right? So badness become the culture, and then the culture gets people who are the vanguard and who begin singing about it and glorifying it even more. I can't hate on them. At the same time, I cannot rest at ease with my black brothers and sisters singing about death.
Mm.
I can't feel at rest with that because we fetishize our own situation, and then we are in turn fetishized by white Trinidad and upper class Trinidad and upper middle class Trinidad who come and they sing these songs about death,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
as if it's a joke, like they're in these parties singing these songs and whatever, but they don't understand that youths actually dying every
Yeah.
day now. The murder count going up, and that people are actually using this music to hype themselves to commit crime, to do different things. And so it kind of feeds on itself. So yes, you have positive examples like Swanee who come out and they're making money. But at the end of the day, the situation from which he's come is not a situation in which human beings should be living. It's not the way we should live. And if we were living the way we should live, we wouldn't have to make that kind of music. And so it's always very tricky for me. The music is brilliant. It's brilliance, like you see in black brilliance. But like it's kind of like when Malcolm X talks about what people could have been. So when he talks about his mentor Bumpy Johnson and how Bumpy used to run numbers, and he was like,
Right.
Bumpy could have been I can't remember what he said, but something great in math. He could have been an accountant or something like that because
Hmm.
he was so good.
Hmm.
But again, it's simply applying the talent within a very specific context in which you've been placed. And for me, that's what's kind of sad for me. Now, what I hope for the movement is that as these youths begin to travel, as they
Hmm.
survive and live beyond where they thought they would have lived, as they begin to own things and whatever, that they realize that there's more to life, and that they bring those messages back into the hood, and things begin to change through them. Because if you look at the hip hop movement in the States, to people like Jay-Z and whatever, from Marcy to Madison Square, the only thing that matters is just a matter of years, right? So we see people like Jay and like Kanye and whoever else who come out of those situations, and then they come back and they say, hey, listen, you don't have to live like this. As a matter of fact, do you know that your ancestors were kings and queens? Do you know? Do you know? So to cry them down at this point, um, no. But to also be settled with it and just say it's a good thing entirely, no. There's much more to it. It's very layered.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation, your insight. I'm so happy to have you on my show today.
Happy to be
Is
here.
there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Um, everybody out there, just look deep inside yourself and know that your own thoughts can be your enemy, and you are not your thoughts. It's one of the things that we do is our downfall. Do not identify with your thoughts. You're far greater than that. Do not identify with your body alone. You're far greater than that. You are a little piece of God trapped in flesh, trying to make his way through this existence. Be sure about it.
Amen. And I can definitely feel the love. Thank you so much for your strength, for your leadership, of course, for your art form. I truly enjoyed the song. It really made my time on the road an enjoyable experience.
I'm glad it
And
did.
of course, I'm happy that we got a chance to speak.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
day.
you very much. You too. All right, guys, listen. Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about and so much to unpack when we talk about Caribbean voices and what it means to be a Caribbean person within the Black Lives Matter movement, or just even, you know, who are you as a person and what are you contributing to society and how can you be greater, right? And so this next guest that I have, his name is Fuad Abu-Bakr. He is the leader of the New National Vision Party. It is a political party in Trinidad and Tobago, and we're going to talk to him, um you know and just check in, right? So I am going to bring on Fuad in like 2 seconds. Yes, I'm adding you. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. I am very happy to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm all right, not too bad. My pleasure to be on. You are organized, and I appreciate that. That's excellent.
Thank you so much. Listen, before we start, I'm just going to have you just look straight to camera and just introduce yourself.
Sure. So, I am Fuad Abu-Bakr. I am the leader of the New National Vision. In my private capacity as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, as a young, strong Black man, um, I understand the importance of Black Lives Matter. And that's why I've been part of the struggle here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I show solidarity with what is going on across the world. It is a worldwide movement.
We're gonna go ahead and we are going to get the elephant out of the room, which is your name. You have a very bold name, and if you are anyone in Trinidad, you would of course know, this name. And so we're just gonna get that elephant out of the room and out of the way, because I wanted to ask you, has your name helped or hurt you in general?
So Fuad Abu Bakr is the son of Imam Yassin Abu Bakr, who was the leader of the Jamaat al-Muslimin in July 27, 1990. He was the leader of a struggle in Trinidad and Tobago. People call it different things, a coup, a revolution. That depends on your perspective. But
I'm gonna tell you that we
and
actually,
I'm listening to, sorry, I just someone calling.
yes, because we actually did cut out. So you kind of have to backtrack for me a quick second. You are the son of, backtrack it for
Of Imam, that's the title given to the Imam. He's the leader of a Muslim community, Yassin Abu Bakr. And the name immediately gives certain feeling to different people within our society, um, even internationally as well. We have connections to the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan. My father worked with international bodies across the world for quite a long period of time. So when people hear Abu Bakr in the Trinidadian context, they think about the coup. And then they also think about the constant pronouncements that have been made in the media of Trinidad and Tobago. And you have to be very careful with the media. As Malcolm X said, they can make you believe that the oppressor is the liberator. So part of that history I've seen over time has been converted and changed and put forward to the population of Trinidad and Tobago in a very negative light. The causes of what took place are very seldom spoken about, but just the exact incident itself is what our mainstream media tends to focus on. And that is deliberate. That is deliberately done to take away from the struggle. It is deliberately done to take away from the social context, to take away from what it really meant and what the tone of Trinidad and Tobago was at that point in time. Fast forward to 2020, and what we see is very similar conditions. We had protests by our nurses yesterday. We have protests by our teachers. There are young black men in Trinidad and Tobago who are being killed by the police. We have, on average, 45 police killings every year in a population of 1.3 million people, one of the highest per capita rates in the world. You know, we have famous police commissioners in Trinidad and Tobago, one prior, Mr. Randolph Burrows, and one present, Mr. Gary Griffith, who speaks about exterminating cockroaches and one shot, one kill. And he's speaking about human beings, predominantly young, black, disenfranchised males who, because they are at risk, because of the failures of our system, have been getting into lives of crime.
Fuad,
And
I want to pause you for a second because, we've been having this conversation about disenfranchised youth, right? Now, for me, my perspective of being, an American on one hand and a Caribbean person on one hand, as an American, I can understand that there has been a systematic oppression of,
yeah,
Black people, right? Even though a lot of Black people do not live in ghettos, right? There are a lot who do live in ghettos, right?
right.
In Trinidad, the landscape is different because we quote unquote govern ourselves, right? And so we've all come from a similar past, and now all kind of have similar or same opportunities, or so it might seem,
So it
right?
might
When it
seem.
right. So when it comes to people who live in certain ghettos, and we know the ghettos, right? We talk about them a lot. We talk about the Enterprise ghetto, the Sea Lords ghetto, the Carenage ghettos, right? What has been different for them versus the rest of the population? Somebody who may have come from Chaguanas or, another part of Port of Spain. What has been different
Sure,
for them over the years?
sure. So, people say that human beings are nurtured into a certain type of behavior, that environment shapes the way we behave and the way we interact. So if you look at these environments, you would see that they have been systematically impoverished. The individuals who live in these communities, they are lower income. We have a system almost of economic slavery, and we were discussing this today on Facebook on my page. We have a system where people work, working class people, and they're working poor. We have a really crass form of capitalism in Trinidad and Tobago, where individuals believe that labor is just a means for the achievement of mass wealth. They don't really see labor as human beings, just a factor of production. And they will pay you the least possible and try to make the most. Trinidad and Tobago has been blessed with oil wealth, gas wealth now. That's the commanding heights of our economy, what drives us. And that wealth has produced, this greed within our society. And you find the inequality in Trinidad and Tobago is vast. I know Mohammed was speaking about a middle class, but we don't really have a middle class at this point. Our
Right.
middle
No,
class
I
is
actually
working poor.
mentioned that there were people in the middle who are, I mean, for all intents and purposes, are in fact working poor, but people who can afford a car, probably live in a decent apartment, can probably go out, on the weekend, go out to eat a couple times a week. This is the classification that I had referred to.
Yeah, but let's get real though. I'm a young black man, an entrepreneur, working hard, my own businesses. The banks own everything. You don't own a car. The bank owns your car.
Right,
You don't own a house, and if you're renting, someone else owns that.
right.
We have to be real about what we actually own. Our disposable income is extremely small.
Mhm.
We are connected to entertainment, so we spend some of our disposable income that way. Food prices are extremely high. you know, there isn't a big middle class, and the middle class, the working class, are crying out. We have this sense of pride as a people as well,
Mhm.
that we don't want other people to know how bad things are with us. You know, I don't
Right.
know where we developed that from.
God is a Trini.
Yeah,
We're we're
but we
prideful
don't say it
people.
like it is. I
Right.
say that I am poor and I am
Right.
probably better off than a lot of people. But like Muhammad was saying as well, we are one catastrophe away from abject poverty. And COVID-19 really heightened that for us
Mhm.
because the vast majority of our population were unable to survive for 2 months outside of work
Mhm.
because you were literally working and using that income to survive.
Who
Now,
are people crying out to, Fuad? Who do people have to cry out to?
and that's the problem in Trinidad and Tobago. A lot of people feel as though we don't have a venue, an avenue to speak out. And some of the young people are speaking out through their music. Some of them are speaking out through violence. Some of them are showing the same lack of care that the society shows for them and the lack of value for their lives. They then demonstrate that, understand what is transpiring in Trinidad and Tobago. So our murder rate is ridiculous. It's crazy in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is because we have devalued the lives of the individuals in the lower aspect of our society. So
Mhm.
they don't value anybody else's lives either. And
So,
it is
that's
easy
a
for a young
cycle.
man to kill somebody else.
Well, that's true. It sounds like the case of the chicken and the egg. What comes before, the chicken or the egg, right? Because certain sectors are not valuing people's lives because they are not devaluing their lives, and who comes first and who does it first, right? Especially when we have such a high crime rate.
Yeah, well, for sure, it's the elders and the leaders in the society that do it first because these are mainly young men within the society as well. And I can tell you who the next criminals are. If you go through our school system, you will see them. You will
Mm.
know them. If you go through the at-risk communities, you will see them. The neglected kids, the ones who are single parents, the ones caught in cycles of violence, the ones who have lost their fathers to violence. Uh, just it's blaring in front of us. If you speak to our teachers, if you go to the public schools, they're right in front of you. You can tell who they are going to be. The dropouts, the mental issues, the ones who are failing through the school system but are still just being pushed through.
As the
They're
leader,
there.
as the leader of the new national vision, how would you address that?
So I want to see a new education system in Trinidad and Tobago, one that caters for everyone and leaves no one behind.
Mm.
I want to see mental health, communication, ethics and morals playing a more important role in our education system. I have looked at education systems across the world.
Mhm.
Models. And sorry, so many people trying to get me at the same time. Yeah. So it baffles me to think why our education leaders don't understand and don't incorporate new technologies and new systems and just even a new thinking towards developing the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I sometimes I wonder if they wanted to continue this way. Um, that's why I'm involved in politics because
Mhm.
from a very young stage I realized that what existed is not going to carry Trinidad and Tobago forward, and I saw the need for our generation to build something different. And that's who I'm predominantly targeting, you know, young men and young women
Mhm.
who want to be progressive, who want to change our society, who want to improve it.
What's your what's your position? What what is your current position now as a member of the Jamaat al-Muslimin? And of course, I would love for you to explain to our audience what that is.
Sure. So the Jamaat al-Muslimin is a religious organization, Muslim organization in Trinidad and Tobago. It is based in the western part of Trinidad and Tobago. So the direct surroundings are a lot of these communities: Diego Martin, Caranage, Port of Spain, Laventil, and young, predominantly young black males, black women from these urban communities gravitate to our religious organization. People in Trinidad and Tobago, young people are looking for identity, they're looking for fraternity, they're looking for guidance. And I was a youth officer for a very long period of time. I'm 34 years of age, so kind of crossing that threshold as a youth officer. But I
Right.
still do a lot of work with the young people that come into our community. I've also been the public relations officer for the Jamaat for roughly 7 years. So I've been dealing with tremendous issues within our
Right.
community.
What's their role and
Listen,
function,
I have
Fuad?
young black men come to us and they say, the gang leader, whoever told me to come become a Muslim, right? And then I have to reshape their minds and explain to them what Islam is about and
Right.
try to guide them on a proper path. It is a tremendous responsibility with little help, with negative stigma from the government, with preconceived notions from other people. And all the while, we have so many success stories. Our school has produced tremendous young individuals like myself, and I could give you countless other people.
Give me a
Um,
layout, no, Fuad. Give me a layout of what the Jamaat al-Muslimin is about as an organization, and then some of the different systems that are in place to support that.
sure. So Jamaat al-Muslimin literally means community of Muslims. So it is an organization of the community of Muslims in that area. It was created to facilitate for Muslims to come together, to practice their religion, to worship, and then also to achieve certain social good within our society. We have schools within our organization, two major schools, a preschool and primary school. We had a secondary school, but we had to close it because of a lack of funding. Only very recently, the government has committed to assisting to help our teachers. We have feeding programs that we
So are
do
you
in
all
these.
self-funded?
Sorry?
Are your schools funded by the members of the community?
So members of the community as well have helped. This is since 1982. We have been carrying these schools, educating not just children from the Jamaat al-Muslimin, but children from the wider population, following the curriculum of Trinidad and Tobago, dealing with some of the more difficult youth and producing excellent results, due to our mix of discipline, spirituality within our curriculum as well. So it has been a task for us. And like I said to you, we have been swimming against a tide of preconceived notions, of propaganda, of negative things in the media. Because I'll be real with you, the people who own our media in Trinidad and Tobago are very afraid of organizations that can organize poor people and that have led poor people into struggle, that have led poor people to rise against what is transpiring in our society.
And is
The
that the
status
plight?
quo, yeah.
Is that the plight? Is that the plight of the Jamaat al-Muslimin to rise above the status quo and to help poor people?
It's about equality within our system. It is about speaking out for the rights of the poor and the oppressed. We have a history for that. And there are major issues in Trinidad and Tobago. Don't let people sweep it under the carpet and tell you everything is nice in this land of soca and calypso and sunny beaches we
Right.
have some serious systemic issues: injustice, inequality, neglect, depression, lack of urban development, corruption. You name it, we've got it in Trinidad and Tobago.
Mhm.
And that is why, because of the stance that the Jamaat has taken towards many of those issues, you find the status quo has this negative and abrasive approach sometimes to the Jamaat.
Mhm.
And that is why even the Black Lives Matter movement in Trinidad and Tobago took blows from the media, took blows from, it's basically ignored by the political elite. They almost did not recognize what is transpiring. I'm sure they threatened a lot of the leaders of these movements. I don't know if Muhammad would admit that, but there is this victimization as well in Trinidad and Tobago. There, people are afraid to even speak out. Like if I put a post on my Facebook page, for example, and it's just a little controversial, people might like it. They might want to identify with it, but because it's public, they would message me directly and say, we support you. Yeah, thanks for standing up for us. But to do it in in the open sphere, it's sad what is transpiring in Trinidad and Tobago.
I am so I'm curious because it sounds like you're trying to swim upstream in a waterfall, right? And so your first of all, your name alone, the ties to the Jamaat al Muslimin, right? And then you're a tall guy. You're about 6'5", right?
Yeah, six
You're
five
about
a
six
little bit
five,
more.
right? and and you're a black Muslim, which in the world is a connotation to radicalism, to
Correct.
you know to terrorism. So you're
Yep.
swimming upstream in a waterfall, but you are the leader of the New National Vision Party.
Correct.
Do you think that you would ever be elected into office?
So what we do is beyond just getting into office. It is not just about political position per se. Maybe I'll be a catalyst for the next generation. Maybe I will inspire the next leader. Maybe I will be the leader of Trinidad and Tobago at some point in time. I'll quote for
That a
you.
goal? Is that a goal?
Um, yes, for sure. Not a personal goal, but I want to see
Mm,
good people lead in Trinidad and Tobago.
yeah.
I want people who, I want a leader in 2020 in Trinidad that recognizes BLM. Like, really? You tell me our, black prime minister doesn't recognize Black Lives Matter? You tell me he's comfortable with 45 police killings every year in Trinidad, with a police commissioner who calls people cockroaches and, says you'll snuff them out, and
Do you
you tell
think
me
that
he's comfortable with
is
400
that
murders
linked?
every year?
Is that linked though? Is that linked to Black Lives Matter when you're in a country as let's say, equally diverse as Trinidad, where the general thing is we're all black, not necessarily ethnically, but as people, as in our color, the way that we think, or people who say, listen, we Trinidadians, and our biggest problem is people really killing each other right now, and I want to go a party, and this person killing somebody, and that's my biggest issue in Trinidad right now.
Right.
What do you say to something like that?
It's all connected. If we understand the value of life, Black lives mattering, then we won't have this type of murder, this killing of each other for small issues. We would have a system that is targeting the reduction of these issues, bringing conflict management into play, trying to find alternative dispute resolution for these communities. You won't find internalized racism. We have racism in Trinidad and Tobago. We have Black police officers that see the Black youth in the urban communities as nothings. When they
Hmm.
go into poor communities, they kick down your doors without warrants. If they
Right.
go to the West Moorings and the white rich areas, good morning, sir. How are you
Right.
doing? We came
Is that
to
a policing problem then? Is
For sure,
is
it's a
is
police
there
problem.
is there a
Police
policing
abuse
problem in Trinidad?
is
Is there abuse of
systemic in
power?
Trinidad and Tobago. You
Okay.
know, so we can tie this movement in the states easily to what we face in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not myopic in my views of what Black Lives Matter is, and I doubt the
Mm-hmm.
Palestinians that have taken up this struggle, the Iranians, the Russians, because I've seen it all over the world, are
All over
just
the world.
thinking about the African male being subjected to oppression. You know, it's wider than that. And we say that if Black Lives Matter, and that's the group that has been systemically oppressed, probably the worst, and we raise that, then everybody else is raised as well. So the standard for everyone else is raised. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just about Black people. It's not just about only white people oppressing Black people. It's about oppression against human beings in general.
Mm-hmm.
And we have classic examples in Trinidad and Tobago, and we should be fighting and protesting and ensuring that these ills in our society are dealt with. But, you know, they scare us. They,
Right.
yeah. And I heard Mohammed say that um, the last resort is protest. And I don't know. I don't know because they're not listening to us.
Right.
You
Do
know,
you represent more? Do you represent the community as a whole versus just the Muslim community? Do you think that there is a is a is a is a conception? I don't want to use the word misses yet, but there's a conception that you are pro-Muslim, um, primarily and possibly only, and that you won't represent the needs of the larger community if you were in fact um to come into power.
so I am pro people. I am a human being above anything else. And that is dispelled by our continuous work in all of the urban communities in Trinidad and Tobago. People know me and they know us for what we are and the work that we do. We don't ask what religion you are, what color you are, what creed you are, if you come to us for help. We don't ask that. You know, when people call me over the phone and say we don't have water in Laventil, I don't ask, are you a Christian? Do you support whoever? I raise the issue.
Mm-hmm.
This is national representation.
Mm-hmm.
But there are individuals who try to divide us because
Mm-hmm.
divide and rule is their only plan still. And
Right.
that's how they keep Trinidad and Tobago right where it is. Indians, Africans, young people, old people, Muslims, Christians, they throw so many divisions in at us. Troublemakers, protesters, criminals, not criminals. They label us. And, you know, we don't cross over to understand other people's lives. Sometimes we don't want to associate with other people. In Trinidad, we swim in different streams, you know. There are different streams of Trinidad and Tobago. One class of people goes
Mm-hmm.
to one area, the next class of people goes to the next area, the next class. And if the upper class realize too many middle or lower class people coming to that place, they switch to another venue and leave that for them. Trinidad
Right.
is a big mess of divide and rule. And that's not what I represent in the New National Vision. I recognize that the lower sectors of the society need representation desperately. The young people don't have a voice. So that's why I predominantly try to represent them. But I am absolutely mindful that as a nation, we need leaders who respect everyone and can lead everybody to a better place. So I
you know
reject that division.
you when we talk about politics, there is, this notion that, when you're in the outside trying to come in, that's more radicalized than being on the inside. Why haven't you joined another political party such as, UNC, PNM, or even MSJ?
So for 10 years, I've been struggling on my own with this new national vision. And I thank the many people who support this vision. So we've contested 2 general elections thus far. We had thousands of votes across 10 constituencies. You know, when the bigger parties were spending millions, hundreds of millions, and had a lot of impetus behind them and gimmicks and whatever. So I appreciate those people who stood up with me. And that says a lot. But I saw my father as a political entity as well, because he had a lot of, he has, and he had tremendous respect within urban communities. I saw him being used by politicians. You know, he supported Patrick Manning and his administration, and then was kicked in his butt, so to speak, you know, treated very badly thereafter. And I saw
Is
him
it
as
fair to
well,
say that he helped him win the election at that
for
time?
sure, without a doubt. There's proof of it, there are pictures of it, there, you know, people who know politics in Trinidad and Tobago know that. And as well, he helps Basil Pandey, the first Indian Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, because we move beyond race. You know, my wife is an East Indian, I have Douglas children. You know, that ignorance of race doesn't play a factor in my thinking, you know. So he helped Mr. Basil Pandey become Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Everyone knows that, you know. That's not a that's not a secret. And then it didn't work out for the people. There was corruption and other issues. So I'm looking on as a young man and I'm saying, you know, I'm learning from the mistakes of the past. I've never put my hand in fire to get burned. I've seen people get burned. I know what it is to get burned. And that's why I've always taken this stance. Very recently, I did decide to enter the People's National Movement because certain representations were made to me by the leadership. You know, they wanted me to come in a real way, and they wanted to change and be more grounded. And I felt as though if I was inside in a real way, I couldn't be removed thereafter. But they changed their minds, and I had to revert to my original position with the new national vision.
So you're
You know,
saying an offer was made, right?
yeah,
Which you considered, but then it was withdrawn.
it was withdrawn. So I
Not publicized as such.
I don't, it's been publicized in many different ways. Like I said, the media is controlled by certain individuals. I don't have $150,000 to pay for a 3-minute ad on one of the major stations. The government does that every week. And when they say this needs to stop, this story needs to go a certain way, sometimes it appears to me that it goes that way, you
What
know.
is,
But
you know, for what I'm sorry to cut you, but
sure, sure.
I'm so interested because I feel like there's so much power with your organization and your affiliation with the Jamaat Al Muslimin. I know that in Trinidad, the Muslim community does play a very significant role and is in fact associated with being very peaceful. There are some people who, of course, have made it, into be this whole Muslim versus Rasta city type of thing, which
Yeah.
I'm not getting into. What I am getting into, is the fact that you have a base. Your community organization has a base. How come that has not translated into votes?
So it has to some extent, but politics is a gradual thing as well. And the wider population, sometimes when it is comfortable, when there's enough economic stimulus on the ground, they don't stop to think and to change. And I feel very strongly that that time has come in Trinidad and Tobago because we've had certain factors, COVID-19, economic hardship for quite some time, where people have stopped their thinking, and we are about to see a phenomenal political change in Trinidad and Tobago.
What would you like to
I
see in
promise you
Trinidad?
that one.
Okay. I'm glad you said it right here. What it is, what do you want? What does Fuad Abu-Bakr, the man, want for his
I
country?
want to see I want to see this dream of Trinidad and Tobago that they said in the anthem, where every creed and race finds an equal place, you know, where all of our races and classes can come together respecting one another, where we could develop a stronger sense of empathy and understanding for other people's situations, where we could share with each other, where businessmen say, all right, let me at least pay a living wage. Let me ensure that people could live.
Right.
Let's give a little in difficult times, where we have governments that are actually representative of the people, the 99%, and not owned by the 1%. You know, I want to see a Trinidad and Tobago that young people are in the halls of responsibility, where
Hmm.
we decide our future. I'm tired of hearing you are the future. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow.
Right.
You know, that's done. You know, now is our time. We are 35 to 40% of the population. We are a great number of the electorate. We have been disenfranchised. We feel as though we have had no options, we have no hope. And it is time for us to speak up, stand out, and own our destiny. That's what I want to see for Trinidad.
Well said. Thank you very much. I am super happy that you came on the show. I know that you're very busy, but I'm very happy that you came on. I'm happy that we had a chance to connect, to speak. I definitely in the future love to do a follow up with you, and I would definitely love to come and see the Jamaat Al Muslimin in action.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I definitely have to come and see that. So you guys stay tuned. Any final words?
Yeah, I would love for you to come to see a better Trinidad and Tobago, which we, as young people, all of us, Mohammed, Muwakils, and everybody else, that we are able to create. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Keep doing your good work,
Thank you.
and yeah, follow up. We'll see.
Thank you so much. All right, Fuad. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Guys, oh my God. Listen. All right, listen. What an amazing show today. I had the opportunity to speak with Muhammad before, and he's the lead singer from Freetown Collective. They had that beautiful song this year, Feel the Love. I'll drop the link in my comments. If anybody is watching right now, drop the link for someone else, drop the YouTube so we can see what that looks like. And of course, we were talking a lot about, the Black Lives Matter movement, but what is happening in Trinidad, right? What are some of the things that people who are disenfranchised are facing? There are disenfranchised people all over the world. So Trinidad can be no different. And of course, then I spoke with Fuad Abu-Bakr. He is the son of Iman Abu-Bakr, Hussein Abu-Bakr. And that's the sort of history. You guys can go look that up. But he is his own man. He basically let us know today that he is all about the empowerment of Trinidad and Tobago, and that, as a member of the Jamaat al Muslimin, that it is not a terrorist organization, but they are in fact a community organization who help a lot of the disenfranchised youth. Guys, I'm so happy that we were able to have those conversations today. We will continue having conversations about Black Lives Matter. I will continue to uplift Caribbean voices in this process because we matter. We are a part of the diaspora, as the mighty Black Stallion said, the same place on the same ship, right? So, some got dropped off in the US, some got dropped off in the Americas, and here we are as people. We are thriving, guys. We are thriving, but we can only do it together, all right? So we have to be united and seek truth. Guys, I just want to share with you before I leave. Share good information in a time like this. There's so much information going around. So please, every time you share information, make sure it is actual and factual. I'm your girl, J Lover. This is J Lover checking in. Where I talk to real people and we talk about real stories amplified. Have a great night, guys.